The delegates are requested to be seated. The first plenary session of the symposium will commence shortly. The delegates may kindly be seated. The first plenary session of 3rd ARRW International Symposium will commence in a short while. The delegates are requested to take their seats. We are going to start the plenary session shortly. Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra, Secretary DARE and DG ICR, has already arrived. The delegates are requested to kindly be seated. We are now going to start the first plenary session of the symposium. All of you are requested to take your seats. All the delegates may kindly be seated. The dignitaries are here. The first plenary session will commence shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. May I take the proud privilege of inviting on the dais the chairperson of the session, Padma Bhushan Professor V.L. Chopra, former Secretary DARE and DG ICAR, and the speaker of today's plenary session, Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra, Secretary DARE and DG ICAR. Please, sir. May I now request Dr. Himanshu Pathak, Director, ICR NRRI, to formally introduce the chairperson of the session, Padma Bhushan Professor V.L. Chopra. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, friends. I think Professor Chopra is such a personality and so known to all of us that he certainly doesn't require any introduction. But as it is customary, and also for the benefit of my younger friends, students and research scholars, I would very briefly talk a little about Professor Chopra. Professor Chopra was born in Adhwal, which is now in Pakistan, on 9 August 1936. He was educated at Ramjas School, Delhi, then Hindu College, Delhi, then Central College of Agriculture, again Delhi, and then Indian Agriculture Research Institute and Institute of Genetics, Edinburgh, Scotland. Currently, he is the Chancellor, Central University of Kerala, and as all of us know that he has a very illustrious career, and we all should be proud to learn from his teachings, from his research work, and of course from his life. He was professor and also head Division of Genetics at Indian Agriculture Research Institute, New Delhi. He was the director of National Biotechnology Center, New Delhi, chief technical advisor, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, Vietnam, and of course, as all of us know, he was the Director General of Indian Council of Agriculture Research and Secretary to Government of India, DIAR. He was also National Professor, holding BP Pal Chair, and a member of Planning Commission, Government of India. He has received several awards and honors. To name a few, he received Burlough Award, and of course, as we know, Padma Bhushan, FICCI Award, Om Prakash Bhasin Award, FAO IWS World Food Day Award, Indian Science Congress Association Birbal Sahani Birth Centenary Award, INSA Silver Jubilee Commemoration Medal, and INSA Aryabhat Medal. He has been awarded Doctor of Science honoris causa by several universities, notably Banaras Hindu University, Chandrasekhar Azad University of Agriculture and Technology, G.B. Pant University, IARI, Indian Agriculture Research Institute, and Narendra Dev University. He is fellow of almost all the science academies in this country. Just to mention, he is the fellow of Indian National Science Academy, National Academy of Sciences India, Indian Academy of Science, European Academy of Arts, Science and Humanities, and Third World Academy of Sciences. Sir, again, we are really honored and proud to have you amongst us today in our inaugural program as chief guest and now as the chairman of this particular session. Thank you very much, sir, for kindly accepting our request and be over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request the chairperson of the session, Padma Bhushan Professor V.L. Chopra, to introduce the speaker of today's session, Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra. Please, sir.
I know you do not need this paper, but even then I had something.
In fact, whatever literature you give me will not suffice to describe him adequately. Ladies and gentlemen, any audience, anywhere in the world where one is talking about science of biology in general and science of genetics in particular will not need a very elaborate introduction to Dr. Mahapatra. He is a scientist and scholar of great eminence. He is among those very few that I have come across in my personal opinion, a very long career in the field of genetics in particular and agriculture in general, where I find a combination of quality of intellect and the capacity to apply that intellect into scientifically useful, socially relevant activities as Dr. Mahapatra does. In pure science, his contributions are legendary. In applied advancement of agriculture for the benefit of society, I don't suppose anybody needs in this audience and in this location in particular about a tremendous contribution to rice improvement in India. As one who's constantly bitten by the bug of achieving excellence, the only person he can compete with is himself, and he does it admirably. Many years ago, when I came to this institution, when I got into the ICR headquarters, the best description I can give of my impression of CRRI at that time, as it was called, was a sleepy institution. Next time when I came, after a very long pause, when Dr. Mahapatra had spent only a couple of years in CRRI, it was a transformed institution. And that, I think, is the best example of describing what Trilochan Mahapatra is, what he can do, and what he has actually proven to have done. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the more time I spend, the more superlatives I will have to delve into, and I don't have that many, being not a good public speaker. I will have difficulty. Let me say that we have in him a person who's an excellent scientist, a person who is a perfect family man, a person who is deeply concerned about what his role in society is and the effort that he puts in to fulfill that role. Great pleasure in requesting Dr. Mahapatra to give his talk. Dr. Mahapatra.
Good afternoon, friends. Honorable Chairman of the session, it's a privilege to be a speaker when your own guide, philosopher and friend is chairing this session. Several delegates, and I see Dr. Sapan Datta recently joining shortly before, and another rice worker of world repute. Welcome you, Professor Datta. And also, we have many from different institutions across the world. I may not be able to deliver my lecture in as precise as what Professor Chopra talked about in the morning. His words and phrases are measured. And what he says, every word has a meaning. So, and that is what his measured response has been to any issue, and that is what we are here to learn about. Thank you very much, sir, for your kind words. When I was asked, in fact, I didn't take it very seriously that I have to deliver the keynote address here. And that's the reason why, I could see this 2 days before that I had to deliver it. So having said that, and accepting it, what I would do is not really focusing only on rice, but the slides will be only indicative. I'll use slides to bring your focus back to rice. To highlight the point, the slides will be used. Time is limiting, so probably 1 hour now. It is already 12:25. So we're supposed to finish at 1, but it could be 1:30 or so. So friends, what I would do is I'll take you through a perspective of Indian agriculture with focus on rice, on various facets, and I believe this symposium aims to cover all these facets, discussing rice in totality, not just one aspect of it or two of it. At the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, though earlier I was focusing more on rice, I have to deal with Rice Plus. So it's hundreds of commodities and institutions to deal with and issues to grapple for the whole country, cutting across disciplines. And that's what I'm going to present before you. So, Indian perspective, you all know that our Indian Constitution directs the states to ensure access to food and nutrition. And this is the Article 47A. But that is what we have today. You all know what kind of famines we used to face. Whether great Chinese famine, Chalisa famine of this country, that was 1783. Bengal famine, 1770, and also 1943. So these are the past events which were highly challenging, and we didn't have actually way out at that point in time, thanks to Britishers, to think about institutions, to think about programs, and one such institution is the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, 1929, and also one such institution is the National Rice Research Institute and the then Central Rice Research Institute. And also we have Indian Imperial Agriculture Research Institute and today Indian Agriculture Research Institute. And Green Revolution happened. We enhanced wheat production, rice production. Great deal of satisfaction when we look back. Though we derided the Green Revolution, that it brought in many consequences which we describe as negative today. But at that point in time, there were success stories, and we have moved on, and today we don't have many large-scale famines to really describe and also to worry about. This is the saga of success of Indian agriculture. Thanks to Norman Borlaug, thanks to our own hero, the leader, Professor M.S. Swaminathan, who is also associated, who was associated with this very institution to start his career. From this podium, while I stand before you, I bow down before these two personalities, one who has already left us and one still around us, with us, still inspiring us. Thousands of us will not be able to replace him, even partly. And that is the kind of vision that brought us food self-sufficiency. And that is what we take pride in. And also learn from. So many lessons to learn from those experiences. Certainly, there are challenges as we stand here. The population today, more than 7 billion, more than 7.5 billion. And by 2050, it will be more than 9 billion global population. And India would be 1.6 billion, the most populous country in the world. It's scary, highly challenging to think about managing this huge population by 2050. In fact, by 2030, most likely we would surpass the population of China. The growth rate has declined. What you see, the graph, the top right, the growth rate has declined and keeps declining, and might be by 2050, it will be close to zero, the population growth. But despite that, the population is increasing. And India's population, as I said, would be a reminder to us all the time that we have to keep struggling, striving hard to meet the requirements of food and nutrition, and also the fiber needs of this country, and the needs of many other nations of the world. It's a globalized world, and we have to continue. The land use change, the graph, bottom left, would tell you where we stand and what is happening to this. When we analyze the land available for various purposes, particularly for different crops, we see either it is stagnant or it is declining. Globally, if you see, about 4.9 billion hectares is available for us, most of it going to meadows and pastures, the pasture land. The arable land, 1.4 billion hectares. Prominent cropland is very little out of it. So what it tells us, while the population keeps growing, that the land is either constant or keeps declining in many crops. And we have to meet the requirement, huge requirement of food demand as we go along. And it's a big challenge. And if you see the per capita increase in food consumption, 2015 to 2030, if you take the scenario, you see South Asia, where the large growth happens with regard to population, and also sub-Saharan Africa. There's a huge demand because of huge consumption growth, because the population is huge here and growth is maximum here. So food availability and accessibility would continue to be a matter of concern as we go along, despite our huge production growth that has happened. The agriculture, as we go along, might completely shift from subsistence farming mode to a more of commercialization farming mode. When we focus on doubling the farmer's income, more and more we realize that the agriculture has to transform itself into a commercial mode of operation rather than subsistence mode of operation. And this includes, of course, rice farming. And if you have to do this, obviously, the focus on primary production system that we are engaged in largely has to shift to use of innovations, and Honorable Prime Minister keeps emphasizing on disruptive innovations. And these disruptive innovations, not just in production systems more profitable, but also post-production systems. So those disruptive innovations in post-production systems to bring about value addition and in the process more returns. So value-added products, variety of products, also in rice. That's what Professor Chopra was emphasizing on. We have to move along the value chain from production to processing, value addition, and market linkage. And that is what is required at this point in time. So I have many slides, so that's how I'll now accelerate after this introductory slides. In case of Indian agriculture, the challenges are compounded with the scenario of land, for instance. So we deal with less than 2 hectares, 1 hectare. In fact, often cases are less than 1 hectare of land. Out of 120 million landholders, 85% are small and marginal. And this is a serious challenge. But it's a real fact. And that constitutes the core of Indian agriculture. The small and landless farmers, marginal farmers, and they have to be productive. Their farming has to be profitable. Moving from subsistence to commercial. How do we do this? And there are several concerns when we describe the context of Indian agriculture. And if you see the right side, these concerns and contexts are noted down there. We have to produce more from less of resources for more population, for more hungry bellies of this country and of the world. We have to move from starch-based agricultural production system targets to more of protein and health products. That is a very serious challenge. How do we move, keeping intact the productivity gains that we have made so far? And the confounding effect the maximum of it coming from the climate change impacts. And that's a real serious challenge to our production system, particularly smallholder farming. Increased cost of production, and as you see, this year budget, that we have to provide more support to the farmers of this country. The minimum support price has been increased. The stress which is exacerbated because of the climate change, and also the concept of One Health. I'm not going to describe each one of them, it will take time. When we say One Health, and internationally recognized now, is a tagline. One Health is a tagline for everybody to take note of. When you say One Health, starts from soil health, and more so in the context of rice, and more so in the context of India, where more than 89% of our soils are deficient in nitrogen, more than 85% of our soils deficient in phosphorus, more than 60% of our soils are deficient in potassium, and more than 15% at least of our soils is deficient in micronutrients, variety of it. In 50s, we talk of 1 or 2 nutrients deficiency in soil. Today, we talk of more than 10 to 12 nutrients being deficient in our various soil types. And when we talk of One Health, the human health system, animal health system, obviously we have to talk about soil health, not in terms of physicality, not in terms of chemical constituents, but also in terms of the biology of it, the soil biology component of it. So when we discuss in totality, it's a kind of scary situation that has emerged. The Indo-Gangetic Plain, the rice-wheat system, which has been the traditional food bowl, which has sustained this country, brought this much-needed self-sufficiency to our nation, is plagued with carbon deficiency, less than 0.5% carbon. And the carbon is the core of the soil fertility. And many soils across the states being carbon deficient. So obviously, the rice soils, we have to, when we go along, I will not be able to describe all issues, but I only highlight, sprinkling all along as we go through. Obviously, the labor shortage is a serious issue, calling for large-scale mechanization. You see many small farm equipments demonstrated here. What extent we have been able to really manage this. Youth is not any more interested in rice farming, for that matter in agriculture. This is a serious concern. How do we address? Who will be cultivating rice? The earlier Director General of the International Rice Research Institute, in his lecture here and elsewhere, used to really show a slide of concern at who is going to cultivate rice for us tomorrow. Can we attract youth to be engaged in agriculture, to be engaged in rice cultivation, face the nuances of rice cultivation, face the challenges of rice cultivation of tomorrow, enter mud without hesitation? You and me, I believe, would be able to do it. And how do we do it? Trade, market, and price. How much rice we must produce for this country? That's a serious matter. I was asked this morning, there's less emphasis on rice. Should we really have more emphasis on rice? How much more rice we must produce? And why? Why we must continue producing more rice? And from how much of soil, how much of land area? So I believe these are the points of discussion, should be the points of discussion in an international gathering like this, so that we are guided by, we are more informed, so that we have policies in place to be implemented. Indian agriculture has done fairly well. It has moved from sheep to mouth situation to a Food Security Act ensuring food at subsidized rate to more than 63% of our population. And that's a tremendous success. More than 5 times food grain production, more than 9 times milk production, more than 43 times egg production, and more than 13 times now fish production and horticulture production as compared to 91, 92 levels, 3 times. And 2016-17, as you have seen, a watershed year to be remembered, a milestone year to be remembered for all time. Horticulture production crossing 300 million tons, food grain production 275 million tons, and milk 160 million tons. Favorable climate was there earlier, but we couldn't achieve this. And this is possible because of integration of policy, the government support and schemes, the technology, and also technology going to the farmers' field, and the farmers becoming more and more tech savvy and adopting more technology than they were decades ago. The climate resilient technologies which are going to field have made Indian agriculture more climate resilient, and that has led to less and less of famine, large-scale famine, afflicting Indian agriculture badly. And not only that we are exporting, and the export is happening, what we are importing is much less than what we are exporting. But our demand is going to increase. Doesn't work? Let's see. So the next slide shows that how much we want from our agricultural land, which is limited, under different scenarios by 2050. If you say business as usual, if you say we maintain this momentum that we have now, or if you expect higher growth rate to meet the demands of the diversified population with regard to their choices. How much production with regard to cereals and pulses? 2016-17 saw 6 million tons extra production in pulses. That's a huge production growth. But can we really sustain this? Can we meet these targets by 2050? So in fact, these are very challenging targets before us. And so also the rice production. We are hovering around 105-6 million tons to 110 million tons. And we have to add another 30 to 40 million tons to this as we go along, starting from 2040. And if we say by 2030 or 2035, if we have to add another 30 million tons, how do we really do? This is a very serious challenge. And meeting this challenge requires, in fact, serious efforts on part of everybody, very specifically my young colleagues who are present here. We earn foreign exchange by exporting. Rice is the most important earner for us. If you add basmati rice and non-basmati rice, rice becomes number one foreign exchange earner. And then buffalo meat, marine products, and then spices. I was there 2 days before at Jaipur, addressing the International Spice Congress, discussing about the contribution of spice and the returns thereof, about 17,000 crore rupees annually by way of export. Basmati rice itself gives more returns than the spices. 10 million tons of export of rice, all of you know. I don't have to repeat this. But that is the reality. But by way of this export, what all we are exporting? The water, the labor, the energy, and in real terms what we are getting. And again, given the challenges that we have, it calls upon everyone concerned to debate and decide how much rice we must produce. It's not just food products we are exporting. As I said, buffalo meat and several other products we keep exporting. And it's a huge return. And we bank on basmati. We have been banking on basmati. We continue doing that. Dr. A.K. Singh is there. And Dr. V.P. Singh, Dr. E.S. Siddiq, and in fact, starting with Professor M.S. Swaminathan, who started work on basmati improvement at the Indian Agriculture Research Institute, brought in a revolution kind of sort. And in fact, the Pusa Basmati 1121, I keep informing this to everybody, and all rice research workers must know this, that just one product, and that is the flagship product of the Indian Council of Agriculture Research, no other product gives as much return as Pusa Basmati 1121. About 15,000 crore rupees per year from export. We salute those the Indian Council of Agriculture Research place on record the contribution of those who made this happen. And today, I keep selling this to everybody in the country, at how we have been able to produce this and succeeded in marketing in the international arena as the flagship product. So more than 15,000 crore from just one variety, and we must continue innovating. And this is now more than 10 years that this was developed. We continue innovating, but we need disruptive technologies. Mind you, friends, these disruptive technologies must continue to happen, continue to emerge from your thought process. And that is what I would urge upon my young colleagues, to ponder over what has been done in the past and what we must, given the challenges that we have. I have only said challenges of population, challenges of small land holdings, fragmented land holdings, and few other concerns. But most challenging of the climate change and food security risk index. If you see, India stands most vulnerable, and because the most hungry people are here in India, the South Asia, if you take together. And that's the reason why the challenge to food security is most unsurmountable, most formidable here in this part of the world, because of the climate risk indices, which are not in our favor, rather they are against us. And that is what you see here. India is again badly placed with regard to the climate risk index. I'm not going to describe all this. They're all just indicators of the kind of situations which are going to emerge as we go along. And the rice is not going to be an exception, which is going to be very badly hit. The farmer has many, many challenges. There are few of them which are noted down here. I'm not going to describe one by one. You all know it. The seed is a challenge. Seed replacement rate in rice is improved, but you know the quality of seed the farmers are getting. The soil health system, thanks to the present government, brought in soil health card, but how we have really managed it and how we are going to utilize it and what is our role, the rice's role in managing soil health, the water and so on and so forth. And how do we manage these challenges? Challenges of food as well as nutrition. I focus on nutrition first and then come to the rest of the aspects. Hidden hunger is a serious problem. Honorable M.S. Swaminathan keeps talking about this. Hidden hunger, protein malnutrition, and also micronutrient malnutrition is very widespread in our country. I'm not going to read this. Certainly you know more than 50% of our children under the age of 3 to 5, they are underweight. And about 20% of them are severely malnourished. 80% of our women at reproductive stage, they suffer from anemia, iron deficiency. And you know, more than 60% of our population use rice as a staple food, and rice is deficient in iron. Dr. Swapan Datta, you know the conventional breeding has failed, don't have variation, iron doesn't get deposited in the endosperm, in the alluvial layer, whatever little is there, it goes off in policing, and he has some lines. Dr. Karabi Datta probably is going to present. And so we have developed some transgenic lines through the efforts of Professor Datta, some lines, but we are long, in fact, very far, in fact, from getting this to our food system due to various reasons. So, given this scenario, that the challenges are really, really tough challenges. And in fact, the hidden hunger is not confined to protein and micronutrient and iron, but also vitamin A deficiency, vitamin A as well as vitamin D deficiency. This country has plenty of sunlight, but still, large proportion of our population suffer from vitamin D deficiency and also vitamin A deficiency. We thought golden rice will solve this problem. Dr. A.K. Singh has some product sitting in the shelf, but I don't think it's going to see the light of the day in near future. We have a lot of struggle on our way, and we have to keep struggling. These are challenges to face as we go along, and we don't have solutions otherwise at our hand at this point in time. Nutrition priorities in Asia is of primary relevance and is our primary focus, has to be our primary focus. And to enhance our capacity to deliver effective nutrition measures and services so that we not only eliminate hunger, also the malnutrition, and for which India is very badly placed, and create in the process the right kind of environment, and also evidence-based support system. We don't have evidence at this point in time. Say in case of rice, we have high protein. we have a high zinc, but how much of experimentation and research we have done to have this included in our food system, and claim that eating this kind of biofortified crops will enrich us, eliminate the hidden hunger. I think sufficient experimentation has to happen. So replicable, scalable, evidence-based models are to be in place. And this is where we have to mount our efforts. I believe there will be sufficient discussion happening. We have to also have more of awareness for access, and also make nutrient-rich food affordable and accessible to public at large. So we have challenges to meet, and there are several areas of concern. With regard to the malnutrition, I have already said, and I'm not really going to describe this in detail. We have changed our focus, shifted our focus from just enhancing productivity to integrating this with nutrition, nutrient-dense crop varieties. 12 of them during past 2 years we have developed. In fact, that was what asked to me about Professor Datta in some context. So I was telling, when he was Deputy Director General, he initiated some of these programs. And one such program, which was accelerated, was the high protein rice work here at the Siveri Institute. And the high protein rice variety which we released, that is a bright example of that focus. And today, last year, we had 12 varieties, which are nutrient-dense varieties, biofortified varieties, in different crops which we developed because of this focus. And we accelerate this further. And this is what the malnutrition in rice eaters, you and me are here to address. Address through biofortification that is happening. And these efforts are to be mounted further. I believe you will be discussing this in more detail. Also, agronomic biofortification. How do we biofortify rice through agronomic manipulations? If soil is deficient in zinc, you don't expect rice grains to be rich in zinc. If soil is deficient in iron, if soil is deficient in other micronutrients, for instance, nitrogen, for instance, there would not be building up of these elements in the grain, in the endosperm, obviously. So you have to address and adequately supplement. So this is what is of relevance, and I believe you will be describing and discussing this in detail so that the rice is enriched as we go along. And these are the examples I was citing: CR Dhan 310 and DRR Dhan 45. The first one enriched with protein, more than 10% protein in grains. This is the first example in the world. When I was reading history of Green Revolution, we worked for it. We were asked to find records. Nowhere there was substantial documentation of what we are doing. And we could not provide the records of Green Revolution happening in this country. Neither we realized ourselves that we have made Green Revolution happen in this country. Until someone in 70s of USAID called it as a Green Revolution, describing elaborately that Green Revolution happened in India and other countries including Pakistan. And our policymakers or even scientists of this country realized that green revolution happened in India. We had a pulse revolution last year. It has not caught the imagination of people who are involved. The steps which were taken for this to happen in 1 year, making this country self-sufficient in pulses and opening the export market. We have now opened the export process and simplified it for export of pulses. Somebody from outside has to come and tell us that, look, you have a pulse revolution which has happened. And similarly, these are the kind of unparalleled developments which has happened. We don't take pride in. We only start criticizing. That is what we have learned best in this country. Let us come out of it, learn how to appreciate what has been done, and take pride in these developments and work in the direction of perfection. That's what Honorable M.S. Swaminathan Sahab keeps emphasizing, that take pride in perfection. When we were students, I keep describing this. Professor Chopra was director of the Plant Biotechnology Center at IRI. And in Pragati Maidan, we had a program on Worldwide Fund for Nature. Professor Swaminathan was head of that. And we organized this, and it was a successful program. And Professor Swaminathan wrote a letter to Professor Chopra appreciating this. And the same letter Professor Chopra circulated among everybody who were involved. That's the kind of personality he is. He gives credit to everybody. And that was even credit that time given to the students who were involved as, in fact, volunteers. And there, that's what Professor Swaminathan wrote, congratulating Professor Chopra for creating a group of workers who take pride in perfection. And in fact, that is what is required at this point in time. The rice workers sitting here have to take pride in perfection. And also at the same time appreciate what is being done. When rice revolution was happening, Padma happened, so also Jaya. Dr. B.N. Singh, when I was director, reminded me that go through the records about how Jaya happened and how Padma happened. Remembering Dr. Rao and making these crosses, T1 to 1 and Tai Chung Nating Buan. Reciprocal crosses made here. Similar looking F2 plants being bulked, supplied to the All India trial system to evaluate in Hyderabad. One getting released as Jaya out of it, the other as Padma. And credit must go to this institution, the workers or researchers of this institution, and the rice workers must take pride. And I can tell you, it was no less than IR8 that we always take pride in. And worship. We must worship and also must not forget what we, our colleagues, do and contribute. So this is high protein rice. I'm not going to describe much. And this is another example I have brought, not related to rice, but widespread anemia that prevails in this country. And this is one which is available in the dining table, wherever dining tables are available today. Not necessarily in rural settings. Obviously, there are no dining tables there. but this is available in all dining tables across the country. And this is the variety Bhagwa that we developed years ago, and today the ruling variety. And you see the kind of color, and that's because of high iron content that it has. And we must eliminate anemia in this country, particularly the expecting mothers. The woman malnutrition must be eliminated. And today we have another called Solapur Lal, where we have double the amount of iron. This is a bright example of addressing malnutrition, the hidden hunger in this country. And you and me together can do it. And this is one example that happened 2017. We developed this variety. And I'm sure as we go along, rice will bring us more surprises and more disruptive changes in the direction of addressing malnutrition in the rice eaters in this country. And when we talk of this, Honorable Prime Minister talks of sweet revolution. We have made this happen through sugarcane. Now we have to make this happen through bee. Why I have brought this slide? You might think that this is not related to rice, but mushroom is very much related to rice. Sweet revolution using bee cultivation, and also mushroom cultivation using rice straw, and building on value chains based on this. How do we do this? If you have to double the income of the rice farmers, you cannot do this by just rice cultivation. Let me put it very bluntly. Even if you resort to post-harvest processing value addition, it will be difficult to double the income of the rice farmers. You have to diversify. You have to diversify to horticulture and also make use of the wastes. And this is one example. The straw, instead of burning, you can make use of and bring in a revolution, and which is a protein revolution, which is very essential because of large-scale protein malnutrition which is existing, particularly among children. And you can extract protein, and you can have, in fact, startups based on mushroom protein. Probably we have not thought about it. As you go along, I'll have very brief mention about it. I have another 20 minutes to go, so I expect that I should be able to take you through the whole story. What I want to tell you, that once Honorable Chopra here delivered the Foundation Day lecture. The whole lecture was on this value addition. How value addition can bring a revolution. So rice straw, value addition, waste utilization, and then addressing the concern of Honorable Prime Minister that how do we create wealth from agricultural waste. Waste to wealth. And by way of burning the rice straw, we are creating havoc in this country with regard to the pollution. And can we use this straw effectively, manage straw effectively, and go for mushroom cultivation, large scale? Mushroom consumption directly, and address the protein malnutrition. And also at the same time, go for protein concentrates from mushrooms, as we are doing in case of soybean. So this must happen. And so also honey. So friends, there are many other ways to go ahead, and I believe we have to have more of innovations. Breakthrough varieties are there to bank upon, and there are some examples here. And we have germplasm, which has to be value added. Sirohi goat, we take pride in because of climate resilience. We have rice varieties having tremendous climate resilience. The submergence tolerance gene coming from our own germplasm, FR13A. The phosphorus use efficiency gene coming from our own germplasm, the Casalat, and there are n number of examples. And we have several strains, local germplasm of relevance. The poultry, the local germplasm Kadaknath, the whole meat being black, not that it looks black, the feather is not black. And similarly, there are many other examples. And you have your own germplasm in case of rice and wheat. And beautiful examples of local germplasm, by themselves so important for our food system. Your own CR-Dhan 310, Dr. S.G. Sharma, Dr. Chattopadhyay and colleagues, Dr. Rowen Singh, and I got associated later, using Assam rice collection to enrich the protein content in this. High protein rice. What a germplasm base in this country has. How much little advantage we have taken. The whole world looks up to India. More than 4 lakh germplasm sitting our gene bank. Can we innovate, take advantage of this germplasm further, enrich the background of high yielding varieties with regard to nutrition, with regard to climate resilience, and also move on in the direction of productivity. So this is where our cutting edge science must help us. There are some examples of cutting edge science. We started sequencing rice genome in the year 2000. We conceived of about this project, 50 crore rupees project at that point in time, the first project in biology, and we were successful. It's a consortium mode of operation that gave us success. But then, what we get from this sequence? Sequence by itself of no use. It only gives how the genome is structured, how the genome has evolved. It's more of academic importance. It furthers the cause of science. But also, by further analysis, one can derive further meaning and technologies for use. And that is what has been done with regard to rice genome sequence. We went ahead with tomato genome sequence, wheat genome sequence, and it's a genomics era. Large number of genomes have been sequenced, including the pathogen genomes, the canal bunt, the rice blast, and so on and so forth. The loose moth, and huge number of genomes are sequenced by now, including mango genome, which is so indigenous to this country. And breakthrough with regard to cloning. We are so successful in cloning, but so what? How do we capitalize on this? And what is that we can derive? Few examples in case of rice would be there. And in today we plan a project. After years of this successful example, that caught the imagination of everybody in this country and global scientific community. We are now going to create many bulls out of one, which is so precious for us to meet the demands of semen in this country in case of buffalo. One giving us 20, not just one demonstrated. Technology for solving the problems of this country. And that is what we require. So cloning, commercially utilized, to produce 20 out of 1, so that the semen requirement in buffalo is addressed adequately. And the endangered ones, the wild buffalo, is also conserved, multiplied, and conserve. These are the kind of focus that we have. And what is that, how it is relevant to rice? Not of a direct relevance. I'm just highlighting a technology and how it can be capitalized on to derive mileage out of this technology in today's era. We didn't do this for past 10, 15 years, having developed this technology, and we must do it, and that is what we are planning to do. And this is where we thought probably having the sequence is one thing in case of rice genome, but add meaning to this rice genome, and this is what we did, developed more than 20,000 mutants, thanks to Professor R.P. Sharma, who is not present here, as a coordinator of this project. In fact, spearheaded this activity, and then today we have hundreds of characterized mutants. And these mutants include the ones having drought tolerance, and also one having herbicide tolerance. And you know the problems of weeds in case of rice. And unfortunately, the person who was behind this, Dr. Robin, to develop the herbicide-tolerant mutant in case of Nagina 22 background, is no more with us. It's very sad, but this program has tremendous success. And these are the mutants which are helping us to unravel the function of the genes. We knew SD1, we knew one gene which brought us green revolution in case of rice. But there are hundreds of different mutations affecting plant height. We do not know what these mutations are doing. We may discover a gene for a trait. Unless we go to those mutation sites, we will not be able to unravel the effect of mutations. We will not be able to understand the effect of different nucleotides on the effect of traits. How different mutations in the same gene affect quantitatively the expression of different quantitative traits. Single gene affecting the same trait in different ways, in different environment, because of the interaction changing, because of different amino acid substitutions. Bright example, Dr. Umakant, my student, is here, who did in case of seed size using one of these mutants, elaborately demonstrating how mutations in the same gene at different locations, creating different protein types, including the truncated types, can bring in different phenotypes with regard to seed size. You don't have to have multiple genes to control seed size. A single gene can give you interaction with the environment and give you multiple expressions in different environments. And these are bright examples. And unless we use germplasm, unless you use mutants, you will not be able to unravel the mystery of variation which is existing there. Gene discovery itself is not going to help us. Transgenics by way of gene transfer and validation is not going to help us. If you want to understand the whole spectrum of rice variation, you have to go down to that level. And you have to understand using mutants. And also you have to go to associations to understand how mutations in the same gene can give us different types of phenotype. There are a number of genes which are cloned using rice genome sequence. That is another use of rice genome. And there are many such examples with regard to understanding function of the rice genome. Thousands of genes are cloned. And it is a kind of child's play today to clone a gene in case of rice. It used to take years together to clone genes in rice, and today it is months only to clone genes. And there are many examples. I'm not going to details. And these are the examples, the grain size gene. And we have so many genes affecting grain size. It has turned out to be such a complex trait in relation to our yield and enhancement of productivity. It is so complex a trait. As I was telling, many genes are cloned. Many mutations are known in the same gene, for instance, GW2 gene, and still we don't understand how it expresses and how it happens. And similarly, the genetic aspect of it is very well understood with regard to mutations and genes, but the epigenome of rice is very poorly understood, and I believe we have a great deal of task to do in this regard. And this symposium must deliberate on how to unravel more and more of the epigenome of rice. Without mutation, we can have variation, and part of this variation can be transmitted across generations. And more of, non-Darwinian, theory of evolution, that how the Lamarckian theory at times one, tends to believe that through use and disuse, probably some of these changes which come in gets transmitted, and how it happens in case of rice. And in fact, marker-assisted selection has helped a great deal, but I think in today's context, we have to see how to really combine genes from different sources, and also at the same time go for creating new mutations in a targeted fashion using CRISPR-Cas technologies. And today, we are making efforts to create drought tolerance, for instance, because it's a complex trait. By capturing on the variation which is responsible for drought tolerance, particularly in some of these key genes, I believe we should be able to create new variation which is not existing in the germplasm and difficult to create by induction of mutation. And in fact, by doing this, there are now examples of variation, and blast resistance, for instance, has been created by gene editing technology. And similarly, also, grain size variation has been achieved by gene editing. There are several other examples now available in literature, how we can capitalize on this. I believe this symposium must be addressing this and discussing this, how to really take the mutation route and non-transgenic route, while we take advantage of the transgenics, the non-transgenic route, particularly in CRISPR-Cas. CRISPR-Cas also use transgenic, but their non-transgenic route and to succeed. And this is what we are doing at this point in time. I'm not going to give you the details, the epigenetic analysis to decipher the potential role of QTLs, for instance, and drought tolerance QTLs. And that is what we are trying to understand, how this QTL is behaving with regard to methylation pattern under drought and under normal conditions. And if you grow a drought-tolerant variety several years under well-watered condition, what happens to its epigenome? They are the kind of questions we are asking and trying to understand at this point in time. And we do not know how is this world and how it is behaving already. We don't really understand well, and there is a lot to be done at this point in time. And this is one double herbicide-tolerant transgenic rice, through our National Fund, program. We have been able to generate, and I believe this should go a long way to provide some of the solution. But then our non-transgenic route, the herbicide-tolerant mutant, should also be providing a solution to this. And there are varieties and the products which have made the difference. As I said, Pusa Basmati 1121, Saga of Success. I have already said I'm not going to repeat. And this is in case of wheat. It may not be of interest to you, but this country's food security greatly depends on this variety. And today, about 30% of area is covered by this variety. We have now newer variety to substitute, but then as far as wheat story is concerned today, it's greatly dependent on this. And I believe that there are many such examples to describe. Sugarcane, more than 95% of area is based on our variety, and the recent story is CO238, enhancing sugar recovery, more than 10% of it in the UP, which was never a case, which was about 7%, 8% around. And jute varieties, enormous amount of contributions of Indian agriculture, but we must take note of, but also at the same time ponder about the concerns that I have already described. And these are kind of examples which you see. There are many such examples and concerns. In case of animal system, this is one important concern while we talk of nutrition, and milk is an important component of nutritional security. But here, the problem of foot and mouth disease. Few days before, we were there in foot and mouth disease institution, which is there in Bhubaneswar, and we are trying to develop vaccine. Vaccine is already there. We are trying to do serotyping of lakhs and lakhs of samples, but then you require thermostable vaccines to reach every nook and corner of this country. It's a big challenge, and the time is up. I'll go very fast in 2 minutes. It doesn't move as I wish. So, yes, next one. And we need combination vaccines to address the problem, and also induced breeding in case of fish. If you want to have nutritious diet, fish eating people cannot be left out. We have to have a blue revolution, Honorable Prime Minister keeps emphasizing, and breeding technologies are required in several fish species. We have developed in more than 50 species, and also there are newer species which are discovered every year, for which breeding technologies have to be developed. Not only breeding technology, also the aquaculture technology, in this case marine culture technology, so that nutrition is enriched and nutrient supplements are there, not only through rice, but also through fish. And this particular part of the country, you have rice fish, which is a very important combination. And that's the reason why we have to focus. And you do cultivate fish along with rice. So that's the reason why we have to see how best we can attain this. And climate resilient rice, this is one beautiful example of having multiple stress tolerance in case of rice. The recent example, I'm not going to really describe, there is submergence tolerance, there is drought tolerance, and we need many such examples in this country. How do we have multiple stress tolerance built in a high yielding background? This is a real challenge, and this is one example in 2017, and this is CR Dhan and 801, and I believe ERI has contributed in this, and there are many such examples. And this is QTL to Variety program led by Dr. N.K. Singh, and which is attempting to develop more such varieties. I believe in years to come we should be able to deliver on rice front many such varieties. Dr. A.K. Singh is also developing varieties having multiple tolerance to biotic stresses, the BLAST, the BPH, the BLB, and I believe along with the abiotic stress tolerance and biotic stress tolerance, when we combine, we have to again see that there is no yield penalty. Our chief guest, Honorable and Chairman of the session, Professor Chopra, reminded us in the morning that when you go for multiple tolerance types, genes, and this is going to really affect, there are some examples, the productivity badly, because of various regions. There could be a linkage drag, but then there could be also, because of the energy needs of the plant, where the constitutive expression of several genes are happening, probably there would be a negative impact on productivity, and we have to address this adequately while we are going along. And there are many resilience indicators, my friends, working on climate resilience, and particularly the management aspect of it. They have given the resilience indicators, and that too in case of rice, for instance, and also in many other situations. They have created climate resilient villages. Dr. Himanshu Pathak has created one village which I visited, and the farmers are excited, and they have adopted new tools and techniques, and we are replicating climate resilient village systems in different parts of the country. And particularly in Maharashtra, 5,000 villages we are going to create with World Bank funding. And these indicators, how do we replicate large scale in case of rice farmer and rice-based farming systems? When I say that Honorable Prime Minister wants there has to be more crop per drop, and when we say more crop per drop in rain-fed ecologies, and as I say, 60% of, more than 50% of rice area is rain-fed, and we have to address this more crop per drop, we have to certainly make rice more climate resilient. And this resilient village experience, how do we replicate? Can we discuss more crop of rice per drop of water? Can we have subsurface irrigation developed at CSSRI Karnal for rice, replicated in many places? Can we discuss the pros and cons of subsurface irrigation in case of rice, the aerobic rice, the alternate wetting and drying methods in case of rice, so micro irrigation on the whole in rice, also other input management systems in rain-fed ecologies to make rice climate resilient along with climate resilient varieties, and enhance the production potential of rice-based cropping system. How do we do this? It's a long lecture. I don't want to really prolong it any further, but this is what enabling climate resilience to agriculture and waste to wealth, rice-based waste to wealth system we have to create. There are many examples. I'm not going to describe this. Fish-based waste to wealth system, many examples, and I believe rice straw-based wealth creation. There are examples, rice grain and chaff-based wealth creation. There are examples, and rice bran-based wealth creation. There are examples. But how to really capitalize on these examples? Build on success stories. There are products from seaweeds, Honorable Prime Minister is talking about, and process to product. And this is one. And I was talking of rice straw. This is cotton waste being utilized to produce the paper for currency notes in this country. We are importing large scale. And how do we make wealth out of waste? This is another example. And how do we strengthen the rice value chain system? Rice grain-based value chain, rice straw-based value chain, rice husk-based value chain, rice bran-based value chain. How do we make these value chains operate and give more returns on one side to the farmers, more returns to the institutions which are engaged in research, and more returns to the entrepreneurs who will be engaged, and also the seed producers, everyone concerned. While I was here, I created one rice value chain. And I believe we should create more such value chains in rice so that we address not only the food and nutrition issues, but also we address the income issues as we go along. Must use sensors in agriculture, more so in rice cultivation. How much we have capitalized on this technology in case of rice. This is an example of a banana. If we use sensor-based irrigation, we save on water, save on energy, and everything, and enhance productivity. How much we have been able to do and use sensors in rice-based production system. Colleagues and friends, delegates, we must deliberate on this. This is age of sensors. We must be able to utilize the sensor technology. Age of nanoscience and technology. How much we have been able to capitalize on nano and then have nano-based fertilizer. Nitrogen use efficiency 30%, 40%. Can we enhance to 60%? Fertigation certainly would help. But in addition to that, if you have nano, certainly it will be further strengthened. And it is a long way to go. Nano zinc fertilizer, nano phosphorus, and so many others which people are attempting. And which one is desirable? We must deliberate and debate and come out with such kind of systems so that we are able to address the requirement and use energy, solar energy, renewable energy, how much we have done in case of rice. So much energy intensive rice cultivation is. Can we make rice cultivation more solar based? How do we do this? The gene banks here, can it be run by solar? The rice gene banks run by solar energy. The rice sprayers run by solar energy. The pumps run by solar energy. The processors, the dryers, the harvesters, all these run by solar energy. Running big tractors would be difficult. The combine would be difficult. But harvesters can be, threshers can be. I believe there's a great scope. And my engineer colleagues sitting here, they have many small equipments for mechanization of small farms. But we have to build in aesthetics onto this, along with efficiency. And by reducing cost, can we bring all these together? And I believe there should be discussion, holistic discussion on rice farming, including mechanization, small farm mechanization, which should be integrated with sensor-based mechanization and solar power-based mechanization so that we have far more efficiency in rice farming than ever before. My dear friends, I'm not going to describe agrivoltaic systems, how it operates, and can we have replication in case of rice farming. And similarly, there are a few other examples. And also with regard to processing and storage, rice storage. And there are several examples by now. And turning technologies to commerce, and I was talking about agri-startups. Rice-based startups. When you do value addition, certainly you expect some startups in rice-based system. It could be rice with mushroom, rice with other horticulture-based systems, and can we have many startups which are rice-based, rice system-based? We don't have many. When I compile this particular document, there are 40 startups, and most of them on value addition, post-harvest processing and value addition, and hardly any on rice. Colleagues and friends, we must focus on this. How do we go for value addition and create new startups? And I believe some of my social scientists sitting here would look into it so that startups are made, there are successful ventures, and we should be able to do hand-holding and make them successful and use more of IT. Last year when Honorable Minister was here, he released Rice Expert. Dr. Das Mahapatra and his colleagues developed this, and that was in English, and now I am told there are in other languages. This is one application. We have to do this in many different languages. All the states in this country grow rice. We have to have translation in all languages, and encompassing every aspect of it. And how do we reach as many rice farmers as possible? This is the era of ICT, and Honorable Prime Minister talks about digital agriculture. So many new ideas he has given us, but how do we capitalize on this? My social scientists and engineers should discuss on this. Can this institute reach all the rice farmers? Send all the advisories to all the rice farmers. Instead of giving advisories to state officials alone, can the advisories regarding BPH go to all the farmers who have their own mobiles? It must reach. Can we have a target of few months? Can we debate and discuss how the rice scientists of this country reach all the rice farmers by 2022? Individually, collectively, physically, and digitally. Can I? I must. And this is the target I have before me, that I must reach digitally all my rice farmers, understand their problem, and address their problem. So this is what I expect from the deliberations as you go along. These are some of the examples of this. And there are many sustainability models for small farmers. I'm not going to do that. Integrated farming system model for rice was developed here. But how far we have gone, we must deliberate. Why we cannot capitalize on this? And for the first time, ICAR was there on the Rajpath on January 26. The tableau of ICAR. In the history of ICAR, this is the first time ICAR depicted its technology, and that is integrated farming system model. Never happened earlier. And how do we capitalize on integrated farming system model for sustainable rice-based farming system? For bringing in livelihood security, sustainability, we have to build on to this, our own experience, and take it to farmers. How do we take it to farmers, my dear friends? Where is the bottleneck? Please deliberate. Don't deliberate only rice improvement. Don't deliberate on genomics alone. Don't deliberate genetics alone. Deliberate on this. Deliberate on climate resilience. Deliberate on this whole system of value chain. And also deliberate on the livelihood security rice-based of the rice-based systems. And how do I do this? How do I do this? Can I take the help of NABARD and take these, for instance, saturate Northeast with rice-based integrated farming system models? And what is that I need to do? Or in the whole country, or the Odisha, for instance, where water is plenty. We must harvest water as much as possible. We must be able to shape our lands accordingly. We should be able to integrate with the diversified agriculture system. We must be able to integrate with the fishery and animal husbandry systems intelligently, strategically, fruitfully, to give more benefits to the farmers of this country. Why not? And I believe there cannot be a better gathering than this to give solutions. And I expect this from all of you. And science to society, one farmer getting Padma Shri last year, the pomegranate farmer and can rice farmer get this award in another 5 years down the line. The integrated rice-based farming system, a farmer based on utilizing this system and promoting this system among the farming community, getting this award, that is your and my responsibility. Can you and me make this happen? I believe we should be able to do this. And I trust and believe you and me should be able to do this. And we should be doing science together. You can't do this in isolation in today's world. International Rice Research Institute is here. The Chinese Academy of Science is here. And many science departments of this country are here. What task we have given them? What way we have taken help from them? Thanks to Dr. K.K. Jena, who has been helping both these rice institutes in India and imparting new technology, infusing new technology to our system. How many such infuse taking place from IRI? You must evaluate and critically analyze. Or for that matter, how much advantage we take from the exposure and experience which is available elsewhere. At IRI, at CAS, in other science departments in this country. We are working, we are engaging them, we are discussing with them, but some good proposals must come from you to engage the international community in our research, in solving our problem with regard to rice. As I said, these slides are indicative. What I am talking is rice and what rice requires. And these are the kind of things we are trying to double the income of the farmers. And again, we have gone to Professor Swaminathan to get his ideas at this advanced age. He did come and grace the occasion. In the final meeting, he did give his advice and blessings. We have prepared documents for every state. As I said, in every state, rice-based systems are so important. How do you double the income of the rice-based systems? How do we manage the rice-based systems? Not only from climate resilience point of view, but income point of view. That's what these documents carry, and they need to be implemented. And can the rice scientists take this place today that they will double the income of the rice-based systems by 2022 and engage themselves in few villages and develop some of these villages as models for doubling income of the farmers. Government has a policy, has a slogan. But who is going to implement? You and me together. Can we take the pledge that I will adopt these villages? Can this institute take the place? But the people present here can take the place that I'll adopt this village and have a baseline survey done and double the income of the farmers by 2022 by infusing technology, by transferring technology, by engaging all stakeholders in the process, including the industry who can participate, including funding agencies who can participate, including the credit giving agencies who can participate, and everybody. Can we do this? This is the toughest task before us. It's a big challenge, and you and me, I believe, should be able to deliver and deliver the good sprints. And this is the last one. I have crossed the time, and this is also, plenty for today. And this is what Honorable Prime Minister, kindly dedicated this facility called Phenomics facility to the nation. And you know this facility, built with 45 crore rupees. And all the imaging systems are there, non-destructive systems, including hyperspectral imaging. When I was planning for this particular facility, I didn't realize that Honorable Prime Minister will come and dedicate this to the nation. And we are happy that we demonstrated to him how rice can be evaluated for nitrogen use efficiency and water use efficiency, and also can be evaluated for high carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere and high methane and high temperature situations. Friends, the rice community must take advantage of this facility, make use of this facility so that we become global rice researcher in terms of our own standing, in terms of our own output, in terms of our own contribution in climate research in regard to rice, and also bring out products, climate resilient products, which are world class, and we compare and compete with anyone, any rice elsewhere in the world. And friends, this is what is expectation from all of us. By 2030, we have to have productivity enhancement by 40%, poverty reduction by 30%, hunger reduction by 30%, emission reduction by 20%. How you and me, the rice workers, can make this happen? This is the challenge before you, friends. When you deliberate in these 3 days of your conference, keep this in mind. How do we address this challenge? And with this challenge before us, by 2030, we will be able to do this. I immensely thank you for your kind attention. I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to deliver this. And also, I express my sincere gratitude to Professor Chopra for giving me 15-20 minutes extra to deliver this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views with us. May I now request the chairperson of the session, Padma Bhushan, Professor V.L. Chopra, to give his valuable remarks. Please, sir.
Well, friends, if there is one statement that I can make without fear of lack of contradiction, it is that we have had the pleasure of listening to a very comprehensive analysis of the agricultural situation. Where are the opportunities? How we can best harvest the advantages of those opportunities and buffer against the negativities. It will take a long time to analyze this kind of a presentation, but the impression that I am left with is that it is a message of hope, that it is possible to do. But it is also predicated to conditionalities, that if we have to achieve this, we will have to take into account certain negativities, and that must go into deliberate process of decision making. Let me give you 2 examples. Dr. Mahapatra said about rice straw or mushrooms. Let's say that we have a glut of mushrooms. They will start turning brown in 10 days' time. What do we do with it? And that's where technology comes in place. There is technology available of using gene editing for making sure that they don't drown. But are we prepared to take that technology? We are still discussing whether to release or not to release the transgenic mustard. So there's a cost to it. There's a decision-making process that must go behind this. But ultimately, I think what I am left with is the message of hope in Dr. Mahapatra's analysis, identification of very many areas where possible trust is possible after ensuring unanimity of the process of decision making, so that we take it forward and not to get it blocked at some stage. Because this keeps on happening. Dr. Mahapatra, the last Foundation Day lecture of the National Academy of Agricultural Sciences, our chief economic advisor said that our research system has been partial to wheat and impartial to pulses. Now, I wanted to say it, but I didn't say it. Research will deliver what you ask it to deliver. Research doesn't deliver in vacuum. If you give a right message, and that right message says, right, we can do it. But our analysis says that these are the kind of situations that you'll have to deal with, which might not be to your best taste. Then you must be able to take a decision on the basis of considering all those things. So while Dr. Mahapatra, I think we have a great message of hope from the kind of analysis that you have presented today. There are matching capabilities of our research system to be able to deliver them if they are provided with the right kind of messaging, the right kind of support, and the right kind of policy framework. Then it is possible to do. But if any one of these is missing, then we'll be discussing in vacuum and in futurity. I think it is possible to do that. Let me also share my views on this. Farmers' income doubling is a very laudable objective. But the objective of income doubling might possibly contradict some of the other objectives that you are faced with. And one will have to take a decision whether one is prepared to pay that kind of a cost. Let me give you an example. The United States of America has come to the conclusion that they want to put maximum buck on research on turf grass, not on maize, not on wheat, not on rice, not on agricultural produce, but on turf grass, because in their socio-economic situation, turf grass is more important because it provides opportunities for people to play golf. It provides opportunity for a country to reduce its carbon footprint and several other things. But we cannot take the analysis of an advanced country making turf grass as the top priority, that we will also do this because we have Noidas and we have Gurgaons and so on, and therefore we want to do that. So all decisions of this nature, which involve a very large and complex network of stakeholders, any decision that we take must be well thought out, must clarify what are the investments one is prepared to make. One must clarify what are the risks that one is prepared to take. One must be clear how the technology for advancing those objectives will be taken forward, so that all these things come in a sync, so that the end objectives are reached. I am quite sure with the involvement of forward-thinking people like Dr. Mahapatra and many more in the government, we will be able to take rational decisions where things are possible to be done, not only possible to be done, but are likely to get done without creating a ruffle into a counter narrative in the country which might take us into a confused status. I think there has been a message of hope supported by available technologies, message of hope supported by preparedness of people to put their shoulder to get this task done. And if we put all these things together, I have no doubt that we'll keep making progress. Thank you, Dr. Mahapatra, for this very incisive analysis. It has been very educative to me. I'm quite sure that it has been also educative to some more people, maybe who are better placed than I am in terms of evaluating the magnitude of this advantage. But I think we all can be confident of having gone back for lunch, of listening to a message of hope, a message of translatability, a message of material good associated with social good. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahapatra. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity of listening to this outstanding lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request our Honorable Director, Dr. Himanshu Pathak, to kindly do the honors of felicitating the chairperson of the session. I also request Dr. Pathak to felicitate the speaker of the session. Thank you, sir. As we conclude our first plenary session, I, on behalf of ICAR NRRI and Association of Rice Research Workers, take the privilege of conveying my sincere thanks to the chairperson and the speaker of today's session for their words of wisdom. I would also like to thank the rapporteurs of the session, Dr. J.N. Reddy and Dr. Meera Kar. I would also take the opportunity to thank the audience for their attention and patient hearing. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we break here for lunch. The technical sessions will commence just after lunch break, that is at around 2:30 p.m. The two parallel sessions will continue. The first session will be held in the main pandal on the theme Genetic Advancement for Yield, Quality and Stress Tolerance. The second parallel session will be held in the conference hall on Bringing Green Revolution to Eastern India. I request the participants of the technical session, Genetic Advancement for Yield, Quality and Stress Tolerance, to deposit their slide at the technical counter near the dais before the lunch.
Here is an announcement, ladies and gentlemen. Those who have not yet collected their registration kits may collect the registration kits during the lunch break from the auditorium. Thank you.